You got important metal work in the Middle East, in Armenia and in Syria. And swords from Damascus were particularly regarded as very high quality. And in Sir Walter Scott's story of the Lady of the Lake, the sword Excalibur has magical properties because it came from so far away and was probably intended to be of Syrian workmanship. So you have the different cultures of the Middle East and Africa developing their own particular kinds of agriculture. You get a rice culture in West Africa, which is based on irrigation. And its subsequent importance is that slaves taken from Northwest Africa were already well educated as engineers in irrigation and rice cultivation. And the reason Carolina rice is a famous and important part of the early American diet was that rice cultivation was developed by slaves being brought in from West Africa with their engineering skills. And because of their engineering skills, they were able to negotiate somewhat better conditions of life than slaves from other regions who were doing the unskilled labor. So people are bringing in knowledge and skills from many different parts of the world and also creating languages. The language of the Bible is not Hebrew but Aramaic, which is a related language in the Semitic group, probably the language that Jesus and his followers used. A lot of the old texts, the Gospels, the Gnostic Gospels, and so on, were written in Aramaic and in Greek. People tended to be very versatile in their languages. In 1492, when the Catholic monarchs Ferdinand and Isabel finished the conquest of Spain with the fall of Granada, they began the process of expelling both Muslims and Jews. The Jews were welcomed by the Turks and by the Italians. They spread throughout the Balkans. Salonika was one of the great Jewish settlements of the Balkans until the Second World War. And the language that developed, Sephardic, is a mixture of medieval Spanish, Hebrew, Italian, Arabic, Persian, and Turkish at least. Texts in Sephardi might include glossaries at the end with vocabularies in all of these distinct languages. The Jews who were expelled from Spain carried with them also the literature of medieval Spain. And so Spanish scholars now search the Jewish communities of Morocco and the Balkans, and some in the Americas. The Inquisition forbade the migration of Jews to the New World, which simply meant that they did it secretly. And you'll find enclaves with bits of the Sephardic language in Peru, in Mexico. Mexico is particularly interesting because they were converts, Jewish converts to Catholicism, managed to sneak into Mexico. And they played an important role in the early Spanish rule. When they were caught by the Inquisition, and many of them were executed, they also spread out further. And there are communities of indigenous peoples whose culture is a mixture of the indigenous cultures of the Southwest with medieval Jewish. Okay, now all of this background is intended to encourage doubt about how things are constant. and to always ask the question, how did it get there? Where is the rest of the world? Now I would like to stop and go on to the organization of the term reports. What I suggest is that we take about a 10-minute break so you can talk to each other. At the end of that time, I'd like you to put on the blackboard the topics for reports. And when you see a topic that interests you, put your name under it. Your name can appear under more than one topic. Then we'll do some juggling and see how do we form probably three groups out of the various topics that are on the blackboard. So we'll have that break now, and anybody who's interested could look at A World of Rivers. And what's interesting about it is that it combines social study, history, economics, and ecological diversity, studies of fish, ichthyology, insects. And that gives you, therefore, the spirit of ecology, which is an enormous diversity of things in flux. So we'll do that now for about 10 minutes.